This is the microscopic world. The sample you see here is from a freshwater pond, but the microscopic world extends across all parts of the globe. One of its most vital habitats is the sea. Before we dive into the microworld, we must first collect our sample. This particular sample is from a local freshwater pond. Collecting the sample is simple as bottling a small amount of the pond water. This isn't the only place you can find microbes. They exist in nearly every environment. For example, rivers, oceans, soil, and even in the clouds. So, now that we have collected our sample from one of the many places microscopic specimens are actually found, we need a way to actually look at it. This is where microscopes come in handy. There are three main types of microscopes: light microscopes, scanning electron microscopes, or SEMs for short, and transmission electron microscopes, or TEMs. So let's start with the light microscope, the oldest, most commonly used instrument for exploring the microworld. In this microscope, light is directed from below the specimen, passing through it and into the objective lens. From there, the light travels through the eyepiece, illuminating and magnifying the specimen for observation. Now that we understand how the light microscope works, let's prepare the sample we collected earlier. First, we take a clean slide and pipette 2 or 3 drops of water onto it. Next, we carefully place a cover slip over the sample to protect the lens, protect the sample, and improve the overall visibility. Finally, we place the slide on the stage, adjust the focus, and unveil the microworld beneath the lens. Oh, it looks like your sample has a flatworm, a simple creature that can glide effortlessly across the slide, squeezing and stretching its body to get through different cracks and crevices. Light microscopy can help us see all the movements and details of our specimens in real time, but how we illuminate the creature can dramatically change what we see. For instance, this cute little flatworm is being illuminated by a technique called dark field illumination. Dark field is a somewhat atypical way to look at the microworld, but it is my absolute favorite. In dark field, the light highlights the edges and finer structures of the specimen by scattering light around the specimen as opposed to directly through it. This creates a glowing effect against the dark background that makes the microbes look like aliens floating through space. Before we get into the other illumination methods, I'll give you a moment to observe the beautiful movements of this flatworm. While dark field is stunning, it's not the only way to view our specimens. Here is a ciliate in bright field illumination, the more traditional and standard way of viewing the microworld. In bright field illumination, light passes directly through the specimen, providing clear and straightforward view, allowing us to appreciate the intricate details of its structure and movements. The next and final illumination technique we will explore today is oblique illumination. While these 3 methods are just a glimpse of the many ways that we can view the microworld, they still provide an example of how different the specimen can look under a specific illumination method. What we see here are two lymphation illuminating using oblique illumination. This technique is a somewhat intermediate between bright field and dark field microscopy. The light is directed toward the specimen at an angle rather than passing straight through it. This casts shadows onto the microbe that creates an illusion of greater depth and texture on the specimen, making its structure appear more dynamic and three-dimensional. By the way, what you're observing in the two lymphation right here is a process called conjugation. During this process, they attach to one another to exchange genetic material. This can help increase genetic diversity in their population, which is a crucial factor for population survival. Now, let's move on to one of our more advanced tools for exploring the microworld, the Scanning Electron Microscope, or SEM. Here's a diagram of the SEM to illustrate how it works. For the purpose of this video, I will not go over every little detail, however, I will keep it simple and explain the important parts of the diagram. The SEM uses a beam of electrons fired from the electron gun at the top. This scans the surface of the specimen. When the electrons interact with the specimen, they produce signals that are collected and converted into highly detailed images. This process reveals surface textures and structures with incredible clarity, far beyond what any light microscopes can achieve. Before we can use the SEM to capture these detailed images, the specimen once again needs to be specially prepared. This preparation is essential to keeping the resolution of the image clear without distortion. From the images I will show, I prepared the samples by filtering about 1 milliliter of the sample water for each stub. Once the sample was filtered, it was set to air dry completely. Once the specimen was dry, it was put into the sputter coater to get a platinum-palladium coating. This metallic coating ensures that the sample is conductive, allowing the electron beam to interact with it properly and preventing any distortion due to any charge buildup. With the preparation complete, the sample is ready to be placed inside the SEM and begin the process of creating a vacuum. The vacuum is also a measure to prevent any distortion from occurring. Now that our samples are in the SEM, it's time to take a look at the images. To give you some perspective on just how detailed the SEM can be, let's start by looking at this image of an ant. At this scale, we can already see the fine details of the ant, such as the hairs and the finer details of the exoskeleton. Now let's zoom in further into its eye. At this magnification, you can see the structure of its compound eye being made of numerous tiny lenses. While the ant can serve as a way to show the SEM's capabilities, they aren't typically considered to be part of the microworld. So, let's shift our focus to truly tiny creatures. This is a shell that comes from a species of rotifer. Although it is as small as the protist viewed under the microscope, it is actually a type of animal. Rotifers are amazing creatures that are typically characterized by the ciliated feeding structure on their mouths, but they can come in a plethora of different forms. This is one of the many forms. Also, this shell is used to actually protect the rotifer. This is a colapse. Colapses are single-celled protists, yet they are able to build these plated shell-like tests made up of mostly calcium carbonate. Colapses are ciliates and use their cilia for movement and feeding, and they mainly live a scavenger lifestyle, mainly feeding on dead material. While we're looking at the colapse, I'd love to show this footage of a colapse dividing. This serves as a great example for one of the advantages light microscopes have over electron microscopes. You can see the biology in action. As we watch these two colapses divide, it's a fitting ending to our journey through the microworld. While the electron microscope provides us a precise look at the tiny structures on our specimen, the light microscope can let us see a more cinematic view of life at this scale. The vast, yet often overlooked microworld holds endless wonders for those who take the time to observe it. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the microworld, where even the smallest of organisms are given the chance to reveal their complexity and beauty.